Lorraine Kelly forced to stop show as she's interrupted by husband's text. It's not every day that a TV legend gets publicly corrected by her husband live on air, but Lorraine Kelly's Wednesday morning show took a very unexpected turn when her cameraman husband, Steve Smith, texted her mid-broadcast with a rather wild correction. "Talk about a badger moment!" On November 27, Lorraine, 64, was cruising through her eponymous show when the smooth operation hit a slight hiccup, courtesy of Steve, who, let's be honest, probably didn't expect his wife to read out his message to millions of viewers. But Lorraine, ever the professional, and a bit of a good sport, halted the show with a chuckle and a quick apology. In the middle of a wildlife photography segment, Lorraine was discussing the animal kingdom when Steve spotted an error and decided to correct her. Via text. In front of everyone. He texted, "That was just a badger, not a honey badger." Lorraine, after glancing at her phone in horror, or perhaps disbelief, turned to the camera and cheerfully relayed Steve's correction. "News just in. My husband has given me a text and said, that was just a badger, it wasn't a honey badger." After a brief pause, during which she processed the fact that her husband had just interrupted her live broadcast for wildlife education, Lorraine laughed and shrugged it off. "Okay, fine. Moving on," she quipped, trying to regain some semblance of control over the situation. But let's be real, it was already too late. The internet had a field day with this one. While it was a rather awkward moment, Lorraine and Steve's relationship has always been one of those couple goals kind of stories. Married for an impressive 32 years, the pair have managed to keep things fun, loving, and down to earth. Lorraine often speaks fondly of their first meeting in the 1980s when she worked as a reporter at TVAM, and Steve was busy behind the scenes. Lorraine, ever the forward thinker, made the first move, initiating a friendship that eventually blossomed into romance. Now that's confidence. The couple tied the knot in 1992 at Maine's Castle in Dundee, and 2 years later, they welcomed their daughter, Rosie. Despite Lorraine's career in the limelight, Steve remains a more private person. In fact, Lorraine once joked that attending a premiere would be Steve's personal hell on earth, adding that it would be like having needles stuck in his eyes, an image that we can't quite unsee now. Speaking of their family, Lorraine often credits Steve for his immense support, especially when it comes to balancing her demanding career. In 2021, she shared with the Mirror how much she appreciates his role behind the scenes. "He picks up the slack and always has. I couldn't do what I do if it weren't for him. He makes me laugh an awful lot. He's very kind and a brilliant dad," she said. And although their daughter Rosie has flown the nest to live in London with her fiancé Steve White and their baby, Billy, Lorraine and Steve frequently make the trek to visit their growing family, even relishing the role of doting grandparents. Since moving from Dundee to Buckinghamshire in 2017, Lorraine and Steve have settled into a swanky £2 million home, which comes complete with a guest cottage, a conservatory straight out of a dream, and a garden that leads right to a riverbed. Cue jealousy from anyone who's ever lived in a tiny flat in central London. Despite the glamorous lifestyle, it's clear Lorraine and Steve know how to keep things grounded, especially when it comes to food. Lorraine recently shared a heartwarming post on Instagram, raving about a homemade steak pie Steve made especially for her, with a cheeky nod to her beloved Dundee United FC. "Nothing says I love you like a homemade steak pie made by my husband and dedicated to it, Dundee United. It was utterly delicious. #pie #home cooking #love." From wildlife blunders to pies made with love, Lorraine and Steve proved that after 32 years of marriage, they're still keeping it real. Sure, her husband might send her texts mid-show to correct her badger facts, but hey, that's true love, right?